So here we are talking about great new plants. We're going to go through perennials first, and then we're going to talk about some of the woody plants. And we even have a part of this presentation that I would call maybe not so new, maybe they're not brand new this year, but they're probably new enough to your customers and worth kind of revisiting to talk about. So without over talking this, let's just jump right in. So we're going to talk about perennials first, and you know, we're going to go alphabetically. So why not start at Agastache? The meant to be collection of Agastache. Now, as we know, there's been tons of Agastache that have come on the market over the last couple of years. This happens to be proven winners. The proven winners look at the Agastache, and we really do like these plants. And I just wanted to give you a little bit of background, maybe a little more background on Agastache. You know, there's no better pollinator attracting plant, it seems, in the garden than Agastache. No matter what the flavor, no matter what the color, it appears as if, you know, let's face it, every bee, butterfly seems to want to visit this plant. And it's really one of the best things about Agastache in the garden. But as we know about Agastache, and we got to remember that sometimes these Agastache seem like a little bit more of an annual than they should. And I just wanted to inject about Agastache that if your customers are kind of dissatisfied with Agastache, the thing to tell them is that this is a plant that just wants to be in a really, really well-drained area. And a lot of people think they have well-drained areas, but if it stays wet at all during the winter months, these plants are just going to be done. So sandy soils that are amended with gravel, something like that. This is the kind of place that is better for overwintering. Anything Agastache is what I would say. So let's just talk about the meant to be collection here. We have Queen Nectarine, which is this beautiful soft peach color. And the thing that's great about these meant to be's is the fact that you get the flower color, but really most of the color comes from the calyx itself, which once the flower goes, those calyx, as you can see in this picture, still have that great color on them. And that is the thing that really lasts through the season is that color. So this plant is really kind of a color bomb. It's really going to stay in color all along. You know, it has multiple flowers. You can see how heavily it spikes up. This is a little bit taller growing group of plants, but really solid, really steady, and incredible amounts of bloom. This is Queen Nectarine. Royal Raspberry is another one of these, and a little bit lower than the previous one. Love that color. It's really a striking color. I've seen these in the garden out at Walters. They're spectacular in the garden. I love the dark foliage on this plant, which really adds to it. With this plant, this has really got great color to it. And again, they're heat and drought tolerant. They love the heat, but that just emphasizes what I was talking about before, that making sure that they have that well-drained soil is really the best thing that's going to be for your customers, and they'll have the most success with this. So this is Agastache meant to be Royal Raspberry. Well, everybody loves Amsonias, including me, and there's lots of reason for that. They really give you something. They give you something all year is what it comes down to. It's not just about the flower, it's about the foliage, it's about the fall foliage, it's about the fact that they tend to be pretty tolerant plants. They'll take full sun, they'll take partial shade. String theory here is, again, another proven winner's perennial introduction, and it's got these beautiful kind of pale lavender flower colors, and there's a lot of them, but they look like a lot because this is really a more compact growing version the one that everybody knows, which is Rudbeckia. That's kind of the most common of the Amsonias in the garden. This happens to be much more compact, a little fuller, so that flower is kind of packed into a smaller area. And what I really like about this plant is just that fine textured foliage. It's a little bit different foliage texture than really what Rudbeckia offers. So not only is it giving you the color, but it's giving you that kind of that texture differential in the garden that is subtle but important, is what I would say. And of course, the one of the nicer things about Amsonia also is the fact that it has really superb fall color. You can't really, you say that a lot about deciduous shrubs and trees in the landscape, but it's not often you're saying about perennials that they have an awesome fall color in the landscape. But this does. It's a brilliant yellow, like all the Amsonias, and it offers you again that extra season of interest in the garden. So this is Amsonia String Theory, one of the new PW Amsonias. Armeria Sweet Dreams. Now, this is a plant that we just started growing last year. It's in the Bloom and Easy program. This is, we always think that it's important when you have branded programs that you have people look at brands and they hope to plant gardens, plant landscapes. So it's really kind of difficult in my mind if you don't have perennials to offer with great deciduous shrubs. So we were kind of persuasive and been talking to the Bloom and Easy folks for quite a while to let's try to get some great perennials in with that. And that way gives people a choice, because everybody thinks of gardens together. They want to plant all the plants together. So Armeria Sweet Dreams is, I think, is flower machine. Like all Armerias, extremely easy to grow. It starts blooming early in the spring. It blooms on and off throughout the season. I love the foliage. The foliage almost looks in a lot of ways a bit like a dianthus foliage. It's got great substance to it. It's got a little bit of a blue-green color, but the flowering on this is just, it feels nonstop. So it's not going to blow you away with the size of the flowers, but the consistency of it and the fact that this plant is so easy to grow is great. And let's face it, a lot of people are looking for great plants that work with other perennials and shrubs in the landscape or even on a deck. And this is a great mixed container sort of plant. It gives you that constant color, a little bit of foliage differential, and it plays nice with other plants. It stays kind of compact. It just doesn't take over a container. So this is Amsonia. Armeria Sweet Dreams, and probably not well known out there, but one that I saw this year that I think is, we grew a little bit last year, and I think that this is a great recommendation for the garden. The Aster Kicking series, we've been kind of playing with these asters right along, and everybody knows there's lots of asters out there, and let's face it, I'll have to check the rule book to make sure I can still call it asters, because we're in one of those great botanical name changes right now, and I'm not sure that the nomenclature police aren't going to be knocking on the office door. If I get dragged out in the middle of this, you'll know why. But the Kicking series right here offers great color, and they offer really that tight form that's really a great garden form. And so tight, compact, loads of bloom, nice and hardy, and they're not going to overtake the garden. And I'll have to say, they seem to have less foliage disease issues in the landscape, and as we know with a lot of asters, that happens to be the case. But very dependable, great daisy-looking flowers, and they love a sunny area for sure. And what, of course, I really like about all asters is that it's that late nectar source for all kinds of pollinators. They bloom at a crucial time in the landscape to support pollinators in the garden. And I think asters are a great way to make sure that you and your customers are providing that extra little bit of support for pollinators in the landscape. So this is the Aster Kicking series, and no one's been knocking at my door, so I guess I haven't gotten in trouble yet with the nomenclature police. Now this plant is one of these plants that I think should just sell like crazy, and this is a Stilby Dark Side of the Moon. I've seen this for 3-4 years running, going out to Walters and looking at their test gardens. It's just, the foliage is spectacular. Now, you might not think that when it comes out, because when it comes out, when it first emerges, it sort of looks kind of yellowy green, and you'd say, people who have planted this when they bought it and had that beautiful burgundy foliage may say, geez, what's wrong with the plant? Maybe it got mislabeled. What's going on here? Well, it just takes a little while for that burgundy to build up. But when it does, this is just an outstanding presence in the garden. Now, let's face it, there's lots of heuchera that have this color, but it really fits a different area. It's a different size. It has different texture to the foliage, more of that compound leaf instead of that sort of mapley leaf. And it's a pretty dependable bloomer with that pink, which looks great against that dark background. But this is really kind of a groundbreaking plant, and I'm really excited to see that it's on the market right now. And this doesn't require a lot of extra care in the garden. Like a lot of the Stilbies, they're pretty tolerant. Once you get them established, they're pretty good with drought. They don't take a lot of fuss. And if you can grow those Stilbies with that texture and that color, the flowers almost don't matter, do they? But so this is a Stilby Dark Side of the Moon, really exciting introduction, and hopefully we'll have tons of these for everybody, because it really is a groundbreaking plant. Well, the Baptisia Decadence series. Now, we've grown a lot of these, and there's 11 or 12 selections in this Proven Winner perennial group. And listen, Baptisias, I think, are incredibly underused in the garden. Now, everybody seems to know them, and it seems impossible for me with a big group like that maybe to stand on my case and say that they're underused. But I got to tell you, there's no better plant in the garden. It does take a big space, but loves sun. It is so low maintenance in the garden. It loves dry areas. The foliage is really great on it when the bloom isn't there, and that bloom is spectacular. The biggest thing for me with Baptisias is I just wish that the flowers last longer. They're just spectacular, of course, and this is no exception. Lots of spikes of this lavender blue flowers, and they almost look like they have a bit of a two-tone to them, as you can see. That's got that whitish little fall to that pea-like flower. These are great plants. There's a ton of selection for colors in this Decadence series, but this is just a great plant, great pollinator supporting plant, and I think that people are missing the boat in the home landscape if they are not using more Baptisias. So this is Decadence Deluxe Blue Bubbly, and just is another great fit with all the rest of these in this series. Well, let's talk clematis a little bit. We sell a lot of clematis here, and we've pushed our way in a lot of ways towards the Ray Evison collection, which for a lot of reasons, they're really dependable. They're easy to prune. They're multi-purpose. They bloom a lot. They're perfect container plants, but they all tend to be a little bit more compact plants. One of the reasons they're great in containers, obviously. And so our mission has been really to try to find some plants that maybe are a little bit higher profile plants. A couple of these are like that. This is Clematis Rosaly. It's from Donahue's. Everybody knows Donahue's. They are they are really North America's, I would say, biggest clematis grower. And what I like about this plant, as you can see, is that it's a larger size plant, but it still has some of the easy care aspects of some of those boulevards and that Raymond Evison stuff. Big flowers, two-tone flowers. They're kind of pink with that darker midrib and darker center. Of course, those stamens are pretty showy also. Great thing about this plant is that it blooms in the summer. It has a little bit of downtime, but then it continues to bloom really late summer into fall. And so it's giving you that long period of time. It would be, and maybe we need to just brush everybody up on these, on the clematis pruning groups. This is a 2. And there's, as we know, there's 3 classes of pruning. One, which is a mid to late spring pruning. Class 2, which is kind of a late winter pruning, and then a little bit of pruning after the first flowers have gone by. And then there's the 3, which is February only kind of thing. Now, let's face it, the February only ones, which a lot of the boulevards are easy. You just cut them back and you let them grow. And it's important to do clematis pruning because it helps revitalize the plant. It gets you a lot of that new growth, which a lot of these newer varieties really do flower mostly on new growth. So it's important to, the class 2 and class 3 seem to be where a lot of these newer clematis seem to be. But it's going to be one of the most confusing things for your customers. It always is, talking about these pruning classes, but you sort of have to go through that to talk about how they can best take care of this. But this is really an exciting one, 6 to 8 feet tall with just these beautiful flowers in the long bloom. This is Clematis Rosaly. Now, another one that is in the same class is Snow Queen. And of course, everybody's kind of always looking for that pure white one. This fits the bill. Nice dark stamens. But what is great about this plant, these flowers are huge. These are kind of 6 to 7 inch flowers in diameter, really showy plants, really showy bloom. Again, this has that same pattern that we talked about with Rosaly, that kind of late spring bloom, a little bit of downtime, followed by another strong bloom late in the year. And this is really showy. Again, 6 to 10 foot tall plant. So it's got some size. It's in that class 2 of pruning, but really exciting stuff. And like I said, our goal was to get some bigger things because people want, obviously, clematis to climb and not just be a container grown plant. And finally, we do have a new boulevard coming along here, and that is Posidon. And listen, you got to give Raymond Evison and this whole series a lot of credit. I got to tell you that those years of having all these clematis that were kind of sporadic bloomers or just bloomed for a short period of time, this is the direction the Evison clematis were pushing in. Lots of bloom all summer and easy to take care of. And this is, again, one of those. You can see it's a more compact plant. It's got these beautiful 2-tone lavender flowers with that, again, a darker midrib, but perfect for containers, really easy. This is a class 3 pruning. If I think I got that right, that it's class 3 pruning. Oh, well, they say you can treat it as both ways now that I think about it, either class 2 or class 3, but very easy plant to grow and lots of color. So this is Clematis Boulevard Posidon. Another perennial being offered by Blooming Easy is what I would call, in a lot of ways, a basic perennial. It's you know the Coreopsis, the grandiflora types are out there. They've been out there for a long time, and they've kind of gotten buried in a lot of the verticillata types, the threadleaf types. But these are extremely dependable plants and very easy care, and that's one of the reasons I like it. This full double is kind of an interesting look, especially in Coreopsis where there's so many singles. And so this plant called Golden Sphere is really still a compact plant, but you can see how much it loads up with bloom. And because of that reason, it's great in the ground. It's great for massing. You can use it in a container and it'll perform well and play well with other plants out there. Dark green foliage even shows off this kind of golden flower color even better. It's drought tolerant. It's got a lot going for it. I love the fact that they're a small plant, but you can mass them too. It's really a great thing. And another good thing about the Bloomin' Easy program, putting these great underused but long blooming plants in their program. So this is Coreopsis Golden Sphere, and for people that have fear of going into the perennial market, if there's anyone still out there, these are the kinds of plants that you can suggest, like Golden Sphere, that's just sort of like a slam dunk that as long as they're not sitting out there with a hose 24 hours a day watering it, they're probably going to have some success with this. And that's what it's all about. Well, listen, there's lots of delphiniums on the market. They're remarkable plants. We all love them. We know what a pain sometimes they can be in the garden. We also know as growers what a pain sometimes they can be trying to grow them. There's no two ways about it. We've gravitated over the years to the new Millennium series. For our tall plants, they tend to be what we've seen, for us growing them and for the results and the ability to get bloom going. This series has been great. And of course, the postcard plant in any delphinium is these blue flowers. I mean, there's just something about a blue flower delphinium that makes people just feel like it's that going out in the garden is one of the best things you can ever do. So these tall spikes, perfect for cutting, are spectacular. Now, of course, as we know, sometimes delphiniums are not the best for hanging around in the garden, which is too bad. Sometimes they tend to be short-lived perennials. And of course, as I was saying, we know just from raising these plants, trying to get them to you in one piece or ready to show off well at your garden center can also be a bit of a trick. But having said all that, Blue Buccaneers here is just you're just going to love the flowers on it. I love that dark center in it. They're great pollinator attractors, and it's blue, blue, blue. Who doesn't love blue flowers? So this is Delphinium, New Millennium, Blue Buccaneers, and again, it's just one of the colors offered in the Millennium series. Well, Echinacea, geez, let's here's a rare and unusual plant. Just kidding, of course. Echinacea is. I would say that Echinacea is the hydrangea of the. Echinacea is the perennial version of hydrangea. Let me put it to you that way. There's just an unending selection of Echinacea out there. And this is kind of proven winners of flagship group, which is the color-coded group. And what makes these so good? How come there's just this continued proliferation of Echinacea? Well, of course, as we know, Echinacea is a signature plant no matter what. It's a great pollinator attracting plant. They tend to be easy to grow. They're a great sunny area plant. But as we know, for all the varieties that have come and gone, that sometimes they're lacking really in consistency. They're lacking in consistent size, consistent bloom. And so these color-coded selections have really kind of unlocked the key to some of that stuff. And that's one of the reasons that we really like them. They're compact and they're consistent. That's the biggest thing. They're consistent, floriferous, and they fit in a garden space. They don't sprawl all over the place. They don't tip over. All those things that taller, ganglier echinacea have been a problem in the past. That's why some of them disappeared. So this is really an improvement. The color-coded collection. There's obviously lots of colors. This once in a melon. You know, those namers out at Walters have had some fun being puntastic with these names, obviously. But once in a melon has this great open melon colored flower with this little deeper cone in there. They have all the attributes of other echinacea, except that they're in a nicer, great package, and that they kind of spread. They're not these tall, geeky things, like I said, that are just waiting to get blown over or crushed in a heavy rain. So this is echinacea color-coded once in a melon, and this is the fuchsia is bright. And it is bright, isn't it? The big flowers, big cones, again, all that you want from an echinacea in a tight form that you can say, this is what I'm going to get every time in the garden when I sell this plant. Great pollinator attraction and long blooming. So this is echinacea color-coded. The fuchsia is bright. And they've developed the double. Now, doubles, I'll be the first one to tell you, doubles for me in echinacea have always been almost a hate-hate relationship. The flower form is different. I get that, and I don't dislike it. But most of the doubles that I've seen in the past have been, you get a few flowers. The plants are kind of, again, sort of geeky and out of control. They just haven't impressed me that much. But having looked at these this past year, I'm really kind of impressed by these plants. And again, it has a lot to do with the form of the plant. Dense, full, great dark foliage, lots of flower coverage. And all of a sudden, this plant looks like something that you'd like to have in your garden instead of some freak show that you're throwing in the garden to see how it does. And that's a big difference, I think. So dense, low, wide habit, great long blooming season, these fully double flowers that really show off well. And so I'm kind of sold on this butter pecan, the double coated selection, and the raspberry beret here. Again, just really spectacular colors. In fact, I look at this particular plant and I love that flower stem color in the back there, that almost black flower stem color. I think just sort of adds to that. But of course, that's kind of what we do as plant freaks, is look for these crazy things. And what the guys that are buying these at home really like is they just like them to perform, and these perform, these deep raspberry colors and the form of the plant, the deep dark foliage. So this is double coated raspberry beret. And again, I think you can sell these double flowers and feel confident they're going to perform for people, and that it's not what I would call a garden freak show. Geraniums, well, geraniums always sell. They always kind of, people love to mass plant with these things. There's a lot of native ones that are harder to find. What we like about this particular plant is that we love the form. It's kind of a wider spreading plant, not too tall, but really wider spreading kind of thing, as you can see from the size. And the flowers are really nice. And the fact of the matter is that they have a lot of them. And I always love these geranium flowers with the darker veins in them. So they've got that kind of pink with purple, which is really kind of showy shows up great against the dark green foliage, and what this nice kind of flowing form through the landscape is so easy to work with. This is going to be a plant that you're just going to be able to use as a utilitarian plant, and the long bloom period is really going to sell this. So this is Geranium Hexum Velvet, and one that I would definitely really recommend. Well, the Frost Kiss hellebores. We're growing nearly. We at one point we were growing nearly exclusive of the Frost Kiss varieties because we just really loved the package that they presented. The foliage with that white venation and the upward facing flowers, and the fact that they had a tendency to bloom. We probably ended up going to one way on this. We've kind of put a couple of the seed varieties back in, and of course we still are growing Ivory Prince, great standby. But one of the things that I think Frost Kiss has ushered in with hellebores is just the fact that it used to be they were kind of like, wow, this early season great sort of thing. It was wonderful that you could count on something being the first thing in the garden to bloom. But what has really happened over the last 10 years is how important hellebores have become as real landscape plants. People kind of like to plant them because they were the first bloom, but never really looked at the fact of what a great shade plant these things were, what they offered throughout the season with the great evergreen foliage. And people have finally found that out. We sell a lot of hellebores in the spring when they're in bloom, but our sales during the summer months now, if we have the plants, are equally as robust as during the spring. And that is a great sign for everybody's landscapes, I think. They're really a great performing plant, very few issues, very little care in the landscape. And of course, they're a great shade plant, and deer don't like them. How can you go wrong with any hellebores? Now, this particular variety of Vibe Velvet is, again, a little bit of a dark flowered variety. And, against that green foliage, that's really, a great look. I love the dark flowered hellebores. I wish there was more of them that were consistently dark on this. Blooms early like all hellebores do, but I think that this selection, along with the rest of the Frost Kiss, are such an easy sell at the garden center and are just remarkable landscape plants that consumers need to use more. Well, hostas, as we know, there's always hostas, and even though we at Prides don't try to grow massive numbers, it always seems like we have lots of hostas coming in. And of course, it's a signature plant. I mean, everybody kind of knows it. Everybody's grown them in their yard, and of course, I guess unfortunately, we love to feed deer and slugs too, which sometimes some hosta have some real issues with, especially with the slugs. But again, going out to Walters every year and being able to walk through their test gardens, which is a great experience, quite honestly. If anybody listening to this ever has the opportunity to go out there, it's a great experience. You can spend oodles of time just looking at plants and being completely overwhelmed by the amount of great plants that are out there. And of course, Walters is sort of groundbreaking on a lot of certainly on a lot of genetics and coming up with these new plants. So you're always going to see something neat and interesting out there. And we've been looking at they have a spectacular hosta collection. I'm sort of rounding my way back to hosta here, but they have a remarkable collection of hosta to look at out there. And a couple of the ones I've seen over the last couple of years that I really like is this one, Hope Springs Eternal. Again, kind of a a low but wide spreading plant. Love the wavy margin on the leaf and the distinct variegation against that kind of corrugated blue-green foliage like that. It's really, you know, there's so many different hosta out there, but this has a lot of appeal to it. There's no doubt. Just the package along with that coloration. Again, really hardy. You know, yeah, listen, there's no deer-proof hosta out there. We know that, but there's a lot of places, a lot of people out there don't have some of these issues. So why not grow what is still one of the most dependable shade growing perennials out there? So this is Hasta Shadowland, Hope Springs Eternal. Again, part of the Proven Winners collection, the getting to be fairly extensive Proven Winners hosta collection, by the way. And this is a white flowered version, which I think is nice too, because there's loads of pale lavender flowers out there, but that white flowered hosta always seems to stand out to me. And this is Miss America, again, really kind of a spectacular look at of hosta. The picture on the right is taken out in the Walters display garden. I can tell by all those pines in the background that are shading all these areas. Again, great shade plant. Really a different coloration. It's got the center variegation on it, but it's really a tricolor, isn't it? It's got that deep green on the outside, some lime green mixed in with that creamy center like that. Really attractive, and again, short height, wide spread. That short height works well in a garden, and it's that kind of a little bit more of a foreground plant like that. So really, and this is the hosta of the year for 2025, which says something also. So this is Hasta Shadowland Miss America. Well, Lobelia, we're hitting all the big groups here, aren't we? Lobelia is again a great plant in the landscape, and it has strong pollinator reasons to grow it out in people's landscapes. The Starship series right here, we have picked up and we really like, because they're again consistency. What you're looking for is something that provides lots of color, but provides a plant that actually performs well and in expected ways. And of course, all these Starships do that. Strong bloomers, great foliage, blue, pink, red. There's a lot to offer in these plants, and they're not gigantic either. They tend to be more of a 1.5 to 2 feet tall plant, which means a lot less flop, a lot more compact kind of thing. You know what people don't realize about Lobelia is really how well they grow in moisture. You'd think that would be self-evident, but a lot of times, we just don't push that enough. They do so well in moist areas where a lot of plants don't do well, and they'll tolerate full sun in wet areas. In a drier area, which they tolerate also, they're going to want a little bit more shade. There's no doubt about it. But so they have lots of different places they can grow. They're great for massing together. Obviously, this is an outstanding hummingbird plant, and the foliage really makes the package here. So the Starship series is a great one to go into, and you're selling consistency and success when you're using this series and trying to sell it to your consumers. Menarda Upscale Red. Well, I know all of you have noticed the trend with Menarda, and that is that everything's been getting more and more compact, low, dense. Yes, a lot of the plants have improved. There's no doubt about it. There's many of them that are much more resistant to powdery mildew, the scourge of all Menarda. It's remarkable the plant survives all those things. It's just I'm not sure your how you look at your garden actually survives powdery mildew. But this plant is different because it's bigger. Everything's been getting small. This is actually a bigger plant. It's 2 to 3 feet tall and wide. It's like the Menarda we used to have before a lot of the breeding took place. And what's great, it's retained a lot of those good things that people have been breeding for. It's maintained. It's a cleaner foliage, more disease resistance, and lots of bloom power. This is a strong bloomer. That red is just incredibly attractive. It's a great pollinator, great for hummingbirds. This is like a must for having a pollinator attracting garden. Well branched, and something that's good for the middle or the background of a garden. Again, rarity in a lot of the newer Menardas coming into the market. And this also has a couple other things going for it. One, the new foliage when it comes out has kind of a bronzy tinge to it. That adds to the early look of this plant. And it has actually a little bit of a second bloom that a lot of the other Menardas don't seem to have. So more color over a longer period of time on a big old-fashioned form that we can really, in a lot of ways, get our arms around. So this is Menarda Upscale Red, Red Velvet, and another new introduction for proven winners. Oh, panicums. Panicums are, I think, one of the greatest grasses to use in the landscape for a lot of reasons. One, they're easy to grow. Two, they have this great texture to them that I think people don't really think about when they're planting them. Yeah, the grass blades are varying size. There's some thick ones in panicums. There's some thin ones, but when they go into bloom, that airiness of the plumes is something that really, I think, alters the garden to a certain extent. It really adds something to it. Then you throw in, like with Red Flame here, this really darker red, more consistent dark red as the season goes on and you get into fall. It really adds so much to the garden. Again, like all panicums, they're easy to grow. They take sandy soils. They take a beating. They sometimes they just do better than we think they do in kind of crappy soils. There's no doubt. But with the amount of bloom on this and the amount of color on the stems, starting with that blue-green blade and turning to really just a remarkable dark red as the season cools, it's really a great plant for massing. So it's not super tall. I would say it's kind of medium to tall for panicum, but it's got bulk to it. It's not one of these skinny, real tall ones. It gives you a nice structure and clump in the garden. So this is Panicum Virgatum Red Flame, and one that I think is really going to add interest to the garden throughout the growing season. Well, lots of new Rudbeckias out there, and this one in particular is one that we've been growing here just a little bit, and we love it. And there's a lot of reasons for that. The biggest reason that you'll find is this is a plant that can stretch the season for the homeowner. This is an earlier blooming plant as compared to Goldsturm, but it also has other advantages. Goldsturm is obviously the Rudbeckia that everyone's grown forever out there, but it has issues, as we know. It's not the best foliage plant. It is more prone to disease issues. Sometimes the foliage looks blotchy, and as we know, sometimes it can make you wait to flower. So this is kind of the best package. It's early to bloom for us growers. It's a first year of flowering plant, so we don't have to do anything but just grow it on and sell it on. But and lots of flowers. Flowers are a little bit smaller, but just a little bit smaller than Goldsturm. But there are so many of them, and the foliage is just such an improvement. Dark green, disease-resistant foliage. this is a great way, as I said, to spread out the flower in the garden for Rudbeckia. Who wouldn't want to have an earlier blooming Rudbeckia? So this is Gold Blitz, and one that I know you'll be really successful with. Well, Salvia, you know, it's interesting how many salvias have come onto the market and how many people are still just buying May Night. And it kind of drives me crazy. You know, we love May Night because we sell tons of May Night, but there's so many better salvias out there in the market, even in the blue ones that flower longer, that repeat bloom better, that are better form, more compact, but everybody is still all over May Night for whatever reason. It's you know, you can almost say it feels like have too successful of a plant in a genus, and it sort of takes the oxygen out of the room for everything else. But I think that despite all those blue flowered ones that are out there, including May Night, what has not really ever caught on as much is white. And I really like this plant because it offers the white flowers and because it actually is a very easy plant to take care of. And it mixes so well with some of those other colors. I think we kind of have been a little obsessed with that single color, and it seems to me that we as a group haven't done a good enough job of kind of selling beyond the purple flower on this. And this is one that you can do that with because it's a great bloomer, it's a good package, and like all salvia, easy to grow. And it is a great pollinator attracting plant too. So this is Salvia Color Spire Snow Kiss, and worth trying just so we can you know, one consumer at a time tell them that there's more out there in the world besides May Night. Well, this is one of our favorite new native plants. This is Scutellaria Appalachian Blues, found out in the wild. And it's a combination of a naturally occurring selection of two different Scutellaria species. And what's so great about this plant? Well, it blooms like crazy. It's compact, it's clumping, it has this great little bicolor flower, and let me tell you, native pollinators just flock to this plant. The other great thing about it is that it adapts to partial shade very well, which gives it even more appeal in the landscape. With this form at a kind of a 1.5 to 2 feet tall, it's easy to mass, easy to spread, great foliage on it, long bloom period. These are the kinds of things that will help people be successful with native plants. And we're really excited about this plant. We had maybe not as many as we wanted this past year. We have more this year. Scutellaria is kind of like Scutellaria? I've never heard of that before. But this is one of those great native genera that are something that we need to talk about in our industry. And with a plant like this, that we can really depend on, and that is such a great performer. This is why native plants can be so big with customers. Easy to take care of, and you can be successful with them, and you can feel good about supporting pollinators with this. So this is Scutellaria Appalachian Blues. Not sure how many of you are familiar with this plant, but this is a plant that you know, if I was out there and I was trying to make a difference with customers, I would be saying, you got to come and see this plant. So that is Scutellaria Appalachian Blues. Well, Sedum are always an interesting group. Colors and forms, you know, this is another group that kind of makes your head spin at times. There's so much to talk about here. There's so many different forms, sizes, blah, blah, blah. The great thing about any of these is that they have a tendency to bloom really well, which you like. This is Sedum Nightlight, dark green leaves, but they have some purple in those stems that does bleed over into the leaves. That's kind of neat. Large flower heads. They like all sedum, they kind of have that late summer into fall bloom. Of course, as we know, they're visited by loads of pollinators. There's no doubt about it. They love full sun. They'll grow in any soil, but as we know, they're much better growing in poorer soil. They kind of hold their form together a little bit more in drier soils. They tend to get kind of sloppy and open in wetter soils, that kind of thing. That's why sedum is a great kind of drought resistant, sort of sandy soil, full sun type of place. And this one is particularly good about holding its shape and blooming well. And just look at all that color contrast on there between the stems, the leaves, the different coloration on the flowers. This is one of those plants that will certainly get noticed in the landscape. And of course, it's like all sedum, pretty easy to grow. So this is Sedum Nightlight, and one that really has just enough of a difference to make you sit up and take notice. Well, let's talk about Cesaria. This, the landscape world knows a lot about this plant, and the garden center world maybe a little bit less about this plant. This is all part of what I would call the Carex wave, if you will. These are the Carex have gotten huge for us and for many of you guys because of their utility in the landscape. They're great for creating that kind of green mulch, if you will, that ground cover type of thing that doesn't require all that wood mulch coming into the landscape all the time. Cesaria is one of those plants. It really is. It really spreads pretty well. It's so easy to grow. Cesaria is out there and has been out there for a while, and a lot of people haven't known this plant. But what's great about it is it takes full sun. It'll tolerate light shade. The blue-green foliage is really kind of remarkable for it. Great massing, great for growing together and just letting go in the landscape. And how is this different from from autumnalis, which is the species? Well, this is definitely more compact and dense. So it really kind of fills that low space in the sweeping native landscape. So this is a native type of landscape. This Cesaria greenleaf hybrid, and probably not well known out there, but we have been selling this plant well, and it really performs in the landscape. Well, this verbena is an interesting plant. We're not, I'll have to say that we are not the usual kind of growers that are selling marginally hardy plants if we can avoid it here. But then we looked at this verbena, and of course it's zone 7. We sell into zone 7, but this actually has great presence in the landscape, even if it's in a zone 6 or zone 5 or even colder area. And the reason is just because of the form. It's a lot denser than some of the other verbenas, quote unquote perennial verbenas that are in the garden. But it's the amount of flower and it's the texture of the plant that really adds to this. So it's compact. It's got these. It's got a lot of flowers, but they're sort of in these airy kinds of flower heads out there, and it just blooms forever. It'll bloom from late spring, early summer, all the way to frost, and pollinators visit this plant a lot. So that's a lot to offer, and if that's not enough to put it in the landscape, maybe you just have to sell it as a great container plant, because this has outstanding presence in a container. And of course, we know that people are always searching for great plants to put on a deck in a container that they can take care of. So This is Verbina Lollipop, and I think you should try it. You should use it and know that. Well, hey, listen, USDA map has changed. Maybe a lot of those people maybe this is going to survive a lot of our winters now in some of these places. So always something good to look at. Pat just asked a question about whether a Cesaria would be good for a slope, and it would be good for a slope. Getting it established is a lot of what you need to do, but definitely it would make a great ground cover for a slope. And as long as you can get it established, like any plant that you're putting on a slope, it'll perform remarkably for you. So that takes us out of perennials and onto shrubs here. And as always, there's lots of great ones coming on here. The Electric Light series of azaleas here, deciduous azaleas, we happen to have liked a lot. And believe me, these have been on the market for a while. It's just that we've never been able to get the plants, the propagules, if you will, to grow more of these. Electric Lights Red, we have some of. Electric Lights Double Pink like this in the first editions program also. This is an exceedingly hardy plant, obviously bred at the University of Minnesota, a heavy bloomer, and just really a great plant to grow. It's not super sized, but it's not small either. But these, as we know, a lot of deciduous azaleas have their place, maybe not right up against a house at times, but certainly out near border areas and dappled shade, that kind of thing. This is a great plant, and we hope to be able to add more and more to these, to what we're carrying on this. Again, the limiting factor has been getting the propagation for this, but the plant itself is a revelation for people with deciduous azaleas. This is not old school. This is definitely some a power plant for a border area and for grouping. So this is Azalea Electric Lights Double Pink. Well, there's always new Budleias out there, isn't there? And you know, we tend to be here at Pride's Corner a little bit dismissive of Buddleia, even though we seem to try anyone that we see. And you know, so the lineup is constantly changing on Buddleia a lot of times. And so when these new Bloom and Easy plants came out last year, we said, you know, we'll try a small amount and we'll see how they look. And we had pretty low expectations for them, to be honest with you. And actually we were pleasantly surprised is really what it comes down to with this one, Birthday Cake, and the next one I'm going to show you. They were very dense and compact, early to bloom, lots of bloom power, concentrated on that smaller form, and you know, really good rebloom. And you know, they were showy. The colors weren't washed out. They really were nice plants. And you know, like all Buddleia, they certainly have a crowd of bees and butterflies around them. And this is no different. But you know, really a nice compact plant. And of course, maybe we've been scarred a little bit, of course, with some of the more compact PW ones, which have been nice plants, but have shattered when you ship them, move them, whatever. And these plants are a lot sturdier than that. So even that is one of those great things that we can talk about with this plant, is how solid it remains and it doesn't break easily. So this is Buddleia Birthday Cake, and an even more dense one, Blueberry Pie, which has that darker color, and I really love that kind of white and yellow eye like that. Again, all Buddleia, they have great scent. I wouldn't say that picture on the right is particularly one of the best pictures I've ever seen in my life, but I got to tell you, when we were growing these last year and they were in the can, they were sort of like the perfect, almost florist quality Buddleia that you could sell to your customers. So this is Blueberry Pie, and one that I'd recommend as being that nice, dense, really tight, and floriferous Buddleia. Quince, you know, you still need early blooming plants in the landscape, and and quince are kind of a throwback, aren't they? Now, it's a great thing that we're not growing a lot of the old throwback varieties anymore, because they really didn't have a lot going for them, is what it comes down to. And these double takes, as you know, really do. And so peach is just another gradation. They've got it's less of a hot color than I would say. And of course, there one that's not on this. There's a new white version out there also that we're growing and have available this spring. But I love this soft peach color, multiple double flowers, lots of great stamens, like all of the double takes, very dependable bloomers, thornless, and easy plants to grow. And they tend to bloom a long time too, which is great. So this is Canomely's Double Take Peach in the Proven Winners Double Take selection, and a great plant to grow for early color. Deer Villa is another plant that seems like it's kind of spread out from the Midwest. Deer Villa has always been a great. Oh, is someone saying that my pronunciation of Canomely's isn't right? I think it's Canomely's, but for my that's my pronunciation. You can I can be corrected though. So Deer Villa, there's lots of them coming onto the market. It has its basis in the Midwest, solid, great performing plants, and really kind of okay, Maya, thank you for explaining that. But what I love about Deer Villa and all the ones coming onto the market, they've retained their really rock hard, so easy to grow in the absolute worst places that you can think of in the landscape and still perform. Now, what's great about Firefly here in the Bloomin' Easy collection is just this really yellow color kind of thing. Comes out yellow, definitely, and yellow and orange, as you can see. It does age to more of a chartreuse color, but who needs flowers when you have this kind of foliage? And the great thing, of course, is that they do have flowers. Now, people tend to overlook Deer Villa flowers because they're small and they kind of are not, they don't knock you out with their size and power, but the pollinators find these plants and they love Deer Villa flowers. So that's another great aspect to this. Great grouping plant, and as I said, this is a plant. Think of Rus Grollo and how that's overtaken the market and the crappy places that grows, and this will grow in that similar place, as will most Deer Villas. So this is Deer Villa Firefly in the Bloomin' Easy collection, and a great color item for the garden that is so easy care. Well, Forsythia, let's talk about Forsythia, and I'll be the first to admit that a lot of times people are underwhelmed by Forsythia, or just say, oh my God, let's just keep going. Yeah, I know Forsythia, blah, blah, blah. Well, I get all of that, but let's face it. It's a least common denominator plant that consumers buy and landscapers buy in quantity. So you always have to pay attention to that, because people want to grow this plant. In fact, I think the worst thing about most Forsythia is that people try to cram them into spots in the landscape that they don't do well. So they end up having to hack them back and make them into little Forsythia lollipops and stuff like that, which, everybody should be averting their eyes when they see that, because it's the absolute worst thing you can do to any plant, but really makes this plant kind of really look bad. They got to be grown in a place where they can spread and do their thing. Now, what about Forsythia Meadowlark here? Well, anybody who's from Pride's Corner right now is kind of chuckling, thinking about this plant, because this is a plant that we've grown for a while, And we've grown it because it's extremely bud hardy. This is the most bud hardy forsythia that you can grow. It's what we call a ray plant here at Pride's Corner. Ray DeFeo, who's our sales manager and our person that has territory the furthest north. This is a ray plant. He makes sure that we grow this, and it's a great thing for us to do. This is exceedingly bud hardy. But our supplier of some of these plants managed to mix up linwood and meadowlark this year, and it turns out that instead of having linwood, lots of linwood like we usually do, we usually sell linwood about 50-1 over meadowlark. It's a bit of an exaggeration, but it's something like that. But all of a sudden we have like 50% of our forsythia this year are meadowlark. And that's not really a bad thing. Your sales team are probably talking to you about this as we speak. It's a dependable bloomer, and it's never going to have one of these issues where it just implodes when you get a real cold night kind of thing, too late in the year, or an unusually cold winter. You can always get yellow on this plant. So this is Forsythia meadowlark. We have it in good numbers, and I know your sales teams will be talking to you about this. Spring Fling is a new introduction for first editions, and it's really a profuse bloomer, and which is great. They've said that it's a zone 5 plant at this point, which means it's really zone 5 bud hardiness, but they're testing in Minnesota, and I believe that this eventually will end up becoming a zone 4 plant for bud hardiness, which would be a good thing as you go north, because again, one of the worst things from my previous talking about meadowlark is that bud hardiness really is important when you talk about it as you go north. But it's really a great plant, not picky. It's not the biggest plant, but 5 to 6 feet tall and wide. And again, as I say, people should grow forsythia where it needs to grow and let it just do its thing without having to go out and beat it to death. This is a good plant for maybe that slightly smaller border area. So Forsythia Spring Fling in the first editions program, and a really showy forsythia. Well, this is we had to talk about hydrangea at a particular point, didn't we? And this is the first edition's really the key introduction for the year. And I know if you went to Cultivate, if you went to a lot of shows this past year, this was everywhere. Hydrangea Macrophylla Eclipse, and it was incredibly noticeable. That dark foliage like that, we know that there's been others that have been out there that have had this foliage, but what's good about this plant is that it's a little bit hardier, and this coloration doesn't fade as the year goes on like all the other varieties we've tested and grown here. This coloration stays this deep dark color, which in itself is remarkable. The flowers are great. I wouldn't say that this is going to be an incredibly floriferous plant. It's not like some of the endless summer plants and some of the Let's Dance hydrangea that just kind of just keep budding and blooming all year round, but it has substantial bloom. This is a little bit larger growing plant from what we've seen, but what really sets this plant apart is this great dark foliage, and certainly how the flowers contrast against that foliage. So, and it's really kind of disease-free foliage too. So a lot going for it. We really like this plant. We're kind of anxious. We've been planting it out in the landscape a little bit to see how it does, because we do know that we've loved these plants with the dark foliage, but when they turn that bronzy green sort of in July, we kind of lose interest. This did not do that. So this is Hydrangea Eclipse, and it's really a plant that I think is going to catch your customer's eye. Let's Dance Lovable. This is another addition to the proven winners line of Let's Dance hydrangeas, and all the Let's Dance have been great plants. It's really just trying to figure out where they fit and in that array of plants here. So what do we like about this plant? It's a heavy bloomer, like a lot of the Let's Dance have been. They say it's intense pink blooming, but really in our area, for the most part, on the East Coast, this is going to be more of a blue look to it, just because of soil pH. It does have really some great foliage color that's attached to it. It's actually one of the ones in the fall that actually has fall foliage color. We know that doesn't always happen in hydrangea also. Dependable bloom, compact form, a nice blue color, blue to mauve color in our landscape with some great fall foliage color. So this is hydrangea Let's Dance Lovable, and another good selection to go with. Maya's asking, are these macrophyllus any easier than some of the older varieties to overwinter? They are, and most reblooming ones tend to be, because let's take this last year for an example. We had it was such a warm winter, and we had 2 times where it just went dark for like 36 hours. One was right about Christmas time, where it went down to below zero and just the worst winter weather for 36 hours. But the crucial time was in February. We had that 36 hours around here where we were up 24/7 here, trying to keep the houses from blowing away, from the heaters in some of our houses to stay on. And that February cold time in the midst of a warm winter is like the worst thing that can happen to hydrangea, because they're sort of running. You may not see it, but they're kind of juiced up, and they're getting ready to go in that. Fall and winter are not our worst times for keeping hydrangea alive around here. It's usually that kind of February into March where we have to be totally vigilant. And what happened in the landscape with these plants, of course, is that they were just as juiced up in the landscape. A lot of the terminal buds died. A lot of hydrangea did not have great color on them, except for reblooming ones, the ones that really perform well on new wood. And a lot of the Let's Dance, that's what's great about them, is that they're just sort of flowering machines. Yes, they bloom on old wood, but guess what? If it dies to the ground, you're probably going to have flowers maybe 3 weeks later, but they're still going to bloom like crazy. So that's where some of these newer varieties are really good. And I hope that kind of answers your question a little bit there, Maya. Quercifolia Toy Soldier. Well, quercifolias have been just a massive uptick in popularity in the landscape, and there's lots of great reasons. One, even though this plant grows in full sun, it says full sun, they actually perform very well in partial shade, as do all quercifolias. They bloom at a time during the summer, which is kind of in that July period of time. So they're adding a punch of color, especially in that semi-shaded area. Flowers last a long time. They have a tendency to kind of fade to a pleasing sort of pink before they turn kind of brown as we get into September and October. Great fall foliage color, kind of this burgundy color as it gets cooler. And they have this kind of rough texture that really sort of works in the landscape. That leaf, that big kind of rough, sort of oakish type of leaf, really has some appeal to it, especially when it's in color and it mixes well with other foliage. So Toy Soldier here is kind of a compact one in the Bloom and Easy program. We just grew it for the first time last year. It grew well. It unlike sometimes quercifolias can be a little challenged to grow in a container. This one did not. Bloomed remarkably well in a container. We think this plant has a great future, and of course, it's a great addition to the Bloomin' Easy program. So this is Hydrangea quercifolia Toy Soldier. Well, we've added a bunch of new apple trees this year, and maybe you're asking why people just come in, they're asking for Macintosh, they're asking for Empire, they're asking for Macoun, but there's better plants out there, and we have formed a partnership with a new supplier that's an East Coast supplier of great apple trees for us, which is Saunders Brothers Nursery. Their family, as many of you know, you've probably bought nursery stock or perennials from their grower in Virginia. But they also have a very strong component. It's really where they started, was in the orchard business. So they have been working with apples and apple trees for such a long time, and they have started to produce trees for us to grow on. And this is one of them. This is Malice Gold Rush. It's a late maturing fruit, resistant to apple scab and powdery mildew. Produces fruit at an early age. It's a great tasting apple. It's a gold one. Sometimes people don't like gold ones, but that, I think, a lot of times is because it's like anything. They've bought Golden Delicious in a store, and it's they're bland apples with bland taste. And I'm saying this when we grow them. This is not that at all. It's a great long keeper, a great taste, anything other than bland. So this is Gold Rush apple. We're excited about this. We're excited about Jonastar right here, which and everybody's heard of Jonathan before. This is kind of a Jonathan upgrade, is what I would call it. Big, juicy, tangy apples, good for fresh eating, good for cooking with, long lasting, and and they have this bright red color with them, and they have some of the gold blush on it also. But this is really an improvement in the Jonathan apple group. And of course, as you know, Jonathan's kind of an old school selection. This is the improvement on that, and I think you'll really like that. And actually an outstanding producer. Honeycrisp Royal Red. This is anything with the name Honeycrisp attached to it is like gold when it comes to apples. People know that, and they buy that. And I'm still constantly amazed when I go into the grocery store and see how much more Honeycrisp apples can command price-wise than the other apples in there. It's still remarkable to me. These are many times 40, maybe even 50% higher price than other apples, and they get it all the time. They seem like they're the quickest to sell out. This Honeycrisp Royal Red is a newer selection of that, a much more dark red fruit as compared to regular Honeycrisp, which has a lot more yellow in the skin, but has the same great thing going for it. Really crisp, really tasty, very dependable, and this will do great in a home orchard for sure. So this is Honeycrisp Royal Red, another new selection that we're growing, and we're excited about this. Physocarpus chroma chameleon. This is and if you're like us here at Pride's Corner, sometimes you say, "Oh my, not another Physocarpus, not another Physocarpus," and but there's a good reason we've gotten into this plant. One, it's in our American Beauties Native Plants program, which is great. Two, it's a big growing Physocarpus. It has a place in the landscape. A lot of these plants have gone to smaller leaves, different leaves, smaller size. This is a good old-fashioned Physocarpus here, except for the fact that it doesn't bloom like an old-fashioned one, and it doesn't have foliage color like an old-fashioned one. The old green ones or red tinged. This is a this is a plant that is really kind of changing all the time for color in the landscape. Kind of comes out yellowy or almost a bright orange. It ages to this. It ages to this deeper color here, and then as the fall comes on, it really takes on again more of that orange hue. It's just it is a chameleon in the landscape. It's one of the reasons that we really like it. The other reason is that it's just a great bloomer. You know, Physocarpus are always underrated when it comes to bloom, and this might be the best blooming one that we've seen. Loads of small heads of pink budded, white flowered plants on this plant. Very much a pollinator attractor, really a good plant, and we're kind of excited about this plant. As well as excited as we can get about Physocarpus. Some of us get more excited than others about that, but really a good plant and a great pollinator plant, and it holds interest throughout the season in the garden. This is Physocarpus chroma chameleon. Well, these have been interesting plants here, and we may have jumped the gun a little bit on putting these in the market if I'm not mistaken, but everybody's looking for that kind of boxwood alternative out there, aren't they, right now? You've probably seen it when you go out to shows, and boxwood is a huge sales plant for you guys and for us. There's no doubt about it. But there's problems with the boxwood, and everybody's sort of looking for that alternative. Now, you know, there's been a lot of inkberry that have come onto the market that have been the alternative to boxwood. But this is kind of a unique look at that, and that is a rhododendron that actually can be a replacement for that. And of course, there's plenty of small leaf rhododendron out there that we know. We all sell a lot of purple gem, which is let's face it, it's a great florist plant to sell, but all of them that I see in the landscape after 2 or 3 years sort of look like purple gem donuts, don't they? They're kind of crushed in the center, and all of a sudden you have a purple gem halo growing in the garden. And of course, people get tired of that and they move on. It's just they're so great looking when they're in bloom, people want to buy them. Well, this plant has the promise of holding up better in the landscape with that tight form. You can see it has small, deep, dark green foliage, and it does have great flowers to them. This happens to be a blush colored right here, but really looks good against that foliage. And you know, we're sort of excited to find our way with this plant. We actually think that there may be something to this plant. It definitely will hold up better than all those other small leaf varieties that we've learned to tolerate when it comes to rhododendron. So we got some out in our test garden here. I know they're going to be hardy. We haven't had any trouble overwintering them in houses, and these are obviously cold houses where we're overwintering them. But we're kind of excited about this. So we have Bloombucks Blush, and we have Bloombucks Magenta, which is a slightly deeper colored. And you know, even the bud has some interest in it. It looks like a kind of a teeny tiny little pine cone, which is sort of attractive also. But keep an eye out for these Bloombucks rhododendron in the Bloom and Easy program. We are cautiously excited about, well, we're always cautiously excited about rhododendron. It's what we do in a lot of ways around here, but this really looks like it's got some legs, and you'll hear more from us on this, but you should definitely try some yourself and see how they go. The Holden series of rhododendron. Now, this is an exclusive for us and other Synergy growers. As you may or may not know, we are part of the Synergy group, which has a number of great growers in it. It's Pride's Corner, it's Overdivest Nursery, it's Saunders Brothers Nursery, it's Sheridan Nursery, and it's Willoway Nursery. All really good growers. And these plants have been, which originated at the Holden Arboretum in Ohio, and they've spent untold amounts of years. The patience that some of these researchers have with these plants is remarkable. But what they were really trying to do is to find a series of plants that were resistant to Phytophthora. And we visited the Holden Arboretum in 2022, and we saw all these zillions of rhododendron that they were growing, and they were growing them in the worst conditions that you could ever think of for rhododendron, which is wet, standing water, the kind of conditions that rhododendron just hate and promote disease problems in that plant. And so they've tested for a number of years, and they've come up with these with basically this new group of plants here, and so there's fuchsia, the Holden fuchsia, peach, pink flare, and red. And we have small amounts of each of these things. I would say that in 2025, we're going to have more. And they look promising right now. Great foliage. You know, they're not just survivors. They actually have great look to them. Nice form to the plant, a strong amount of bloom, really good foliage. And this is another plant that will help solve a problem in the landscape, and that is that these are resistant to Phytophthora. And you know, every year here at Pride's Corner, in our situation where we're raising these things, we have certain varieties we're throwing out a lot of plants of because this is a problem. But these plants we haven't had any issue with. We're excited about the future for these plants. So this is the Holden series. Your sales team can talk to you more about these plants. And this is something that I think we love, that we have the kind of exclusive as a synergy group for this really groundbreaking series of rhododendron. Well, let's talk a few roses now. Listen, there's always a lot of new roses coming in the market, but we've picked some plants that I think are pretty exciting and that you should really take a look at. This is Oh So Easy Ice Bay. The Oh So Easy roses have been out there for quite a while. This is what I would call the best addition to an established series that I've seen in a while. Why am I saying that? The flower color is well, how can white be remarkable? Well, it is. It's pure white, and it ages well. And they have these nice yellow stamens, really makes it stand out. I love the foliage on this plant. It is the deepest, darkest green foliage that you probably have ever seen, and it really makes these white flowers glow, is really what it comes down to. Lots of bloom, continuous blooming throughout the season, you know, easy to take care of, disease resistant, 2 to 3 feet tall and wide, a great plant for grouping. Yes, this is not the cut roses that I think all these sometimes everybody looks at as the right plant to grow. These are great landscape plants. And again, if many of you have visited our farm, I've headed up the rose program here at Pride's Corner for a long time. And one of my biggest beefs is that we treat roses in our industry as second-class citizens. Now, you wouldn't think that with all the roses that are out there, but a lot of times consumers love roses. They love buying roses. And we, a lot of times, cut off their access to roses. We don't sell them roses during the summer months when they're the best flowering shrub you can buy. And we are guilty of the way that we look at plants. We are guilty as horticulturists of not sometimes giving the customer what they want. And that's definitely the case with roses here. And I think we have to look at the fact that we have these great flowering shrubs that bloom all summer, that not that don't have disease problems if you pick the right ones, and there's plenty of them that are out there that are own root plants that are easy to grow, easy to come back, and we just say that they're a rose. We don't like them, they don't have to like them, and we're wrong in thinking about that. The roses, everybody should grow and carry more of the right roses, not the crappy roses, which are out there, and we know them all as Peace and Tropicana and Double Delight and blah, blah, blah. We're growing some of those things. But these are the real roses that people should be growing. So this is Oh So Easy Ice Bay. A couple of new knockouts out there. This one, this is actually going to be the replacement for a Sunny Knockout, and there's a good reason they're trying to replace Sunny Knockout. The foliage isn't great. It fades immediately when it opens, as we know. It opens kind of a nice kind of creamy yellow and is white within like 10 minutes. It does have a great fragrance, and so does this one, but we've liked what we've seen about this. Dark green, shiny foliage, lots of bloom, and the bloom, while it does fade, it never is white in like 20 seconds, and it really, really has an immense scent to them. When they're open, you know it. So this is Rosa Easy Beasy Knockout. It's a great plant. We're going to have both Sunny and Easy Beasy this year as a transition, but this is a knockout to be excited about because it is a better yellow, a better Sunny knockout. Flower carpets. Now, everyone says, "Oh my God, flower carpets! Come on, I've grown those forever." Well, what's great about flower carpets? They're a low maintenance mass in the landscape type of plant. And what we like about this particular plant, we love this bloom. It's a heavy bloom. It's a small bloom, but it's got that cherry look to it that people get excited about with great foliage. This is a great plant for massing, using in containers, that kind of thing. And I think that you're going to see some more interesting plants coming out in flower carpets. Let's face it, there has been a lot of introductions out there, but although amber and scarlet are some of the best roses we grow, it's just people don't know them as well. But this is flower carpet mini cherry, and I think this will be a great performer for you. Dan is asking, will you guys grow Yves Piaget rose this year? There's always a great story behind roses, and yes, I agree that was a great plant that we had to basically throw at people this past year to get it to sell. So we did not buy it again. It's great to hear that feedback, Dan, because that's something that we maybe should bring back. It was a remarkable rose. We were really depressed when it didn't sell, and we basically mostly discounted it out. But they were great blooms, nice foliage, good disease resistance, own root, and very fragrant, as you say. But sometimes you do have to go with the sales on that. We just couldn't move the dial on it. But I appreciate your feedback because maybe we'll bring it back. Burgundy Iceberg. This is another surprise plant from this past year. We sort of got these plants because we had to. We had a hole in our kind of floribundas, and we'd grown this plant a number of years ago and moved on. But it was an early bloomer, and we really liked it. The flower color is just so distinct, and there was so much of it that we decided to bring it back. And like all the iceberg, they're good own root hardy plants. They bloom on and off throughout the summer, but this color and the earliness of the bloom really spoke to us. And so we brought this back, and we're hoping that it sells well because we really like this plant. That's Rosa Burgundy Iceberg. Another knockout is Orange Glow, and we've been impressed with what we've seen with this plant also. the thing that I would say that is most impressive for it as a knockout is that how fully double that flower is. Because as we know with knockouts, there's some doubles. Double pink is a great plant. Regular double knockout is a great plant, but they're sort of their double is not the double that we think about with roses. This actually is. Great color, comes out orange, fades to kind of a coral. That there's kind of this luminosity about the flower that's really impressive. Nice deep dark green foliage and actually super floriferous. So another new knockout to be excited about. This is a little bit larger scale, I would say, for a knockout, but an incredible performer in the landscape. The Rise Up series. This is part of PW. I don't know whether you guys have tried these plants. If you haven't, you're nuts not to. These are a group of miniature climbers that are incredibly hardy on their own roots and very versatile. And great foliage on them, definitely different colors. Amberness, Ember Rays, which is new for this year. We've had Amberness and lilac days before, but we really love these plants, and this is one of these different groups that I think you can really get your hands around. They're perfect for containers, perfect for small spaces. They're not these gigantic sprawly things like trying to grow a climbing blaze, which certainly has its place in the landscape. These also are so much easier to take care of and great for smaller spaces. So look for the Rise Up series and definitely try some of these. This is a great new category that I think you can really kind of sink your teeth into. Well, speaking of sinking your teeth into something, how about a blackberry here? And this is new from Proven Winners this year. And you say, well, geez, how come blackberry with Proven Winners? What's going on here? They're ornamental plants. Why would they be into this? And it's really kind of an interesting story. Tim Wood, who you may or may not know, is kind of the person that is the driving force behind finding a lot of the plants that go into Proven Winners shrubs. Told this story about blackberries are always the biggest disappointment of any fruit that you buy anywhere. They look superb, they look great, and you take them home and they are tasteless. And he was right about that. I never even really thought about that, but they are disappointing. If they have taste, it's pretty subtle, isn't it? And he just went on this mission to find a blackberry that actually tastes good. And lo and behold, this is what they came up with. And of course, at the last Proven Winners meeting we were at, they were out there passing out blackberries, something that you normally get, something from this plant, and the taste difference was incredible. So if you're looking to sell your customers a fruit that actually tastes good when it comes to small berries like this is the blackberry to do that with, because this is sweet, it's tart at the same time, and it always has flavor, unlike what you get in the grocery store. So this is Rubus Taste of Heaven, a big high yielding plant, but thornless also, and something that you can sell just on what everybody likes about food. It tastes great. A couple of the things, we've added a couple of viburnums. This is a University of Connecticut find right here. This is Casinoides, which is one of the lesser known species of viburnum, but really has a great place in the landscape. They're super hardy. They have great foliage on them, and this one blooms well and has really great fruit and flower, which is really what you want in a Casinoides type. So yeah, this is a little bit off the beaten path, but our friends at the University of Connecticut love this plant, and we love to support the university. And this is Viburnum cassinoides raisinette. This is really the first year where we got a few on the ground here, but we're kind of excited about making this part of the American Beauties program. Much like we are with this one, which is dentatum plum pudding. And we've had this plant around here for a little bit now, and dentatums are sort of an interesting plant. They've kind of they kind of bottomed out a little bit for us about 6, 7 years ago, and all of a sudden they're just hotter than hot again. And of course, there's lots of reasons for that. They do bloom really well. And this particular one is just a really such an improvement, I think, on the straight species. It really is a heavier bloomer, like all dentatums. It's a great it supports native fauna. You can see that it supports the azure blue butterfly here. It has a lot of bee visitation because of the bloom on it. Lots of heads of small white flowers, and the fall foliage on this is remarkable. That's one of the things that we really like about this, is that how often is a viburnum dentatum really kind of ornamental, in the sense that in the fall you're saying, wow, what is that plant that has such great fall color on it? Well, this one has great fall color. So a lot going for this. Let's face it, this is never going to be one of those plants that we're going to sell billions of, but with how big native plants are, and being involved in American Beauty's native plants, and trying to reintroduce these great natives to people that want to have landscapes that really help their world, this is a great plant to look at. So we're excited about this plant, again, from the University of Connecticut. This is Viburnum dentatum native star plum pudding. A mouthful there for sure. And I'm sorry, Chris. I'm talking to Chris Valley, one of our salespeople right now, who is really kind of a little dark about Weigelia right now, but as maybe many of us are, this feels like it was really a COVID plant that kind of lost it after COVID, most Weigelia. But I got to tell you, if you're looking for a Weigelia that actually performs in the landscape, this thing was remarkable last year, our first year that we grew this. Really dark foliage on it, and this thing never went out of bloom. It was just remarkable. It went out of bloom when we cut it back, is what it comes down to. And then when it grew out, it would bloom again. This is really, that white flower against that dark foliage looks good. It looks great. And Tuxedo, which is the Bloom and Easy plant, and that is kind of a similar plant to this dark foliage. The foliage doesn't stay as dark, and it has nowhere near the bloom power that this plant does. This is a real winner out there in the landscape. This is Weigelia Wine and Spirits, and it is a true landscape performer. So let's go to our last category here. This is brand new, not brand new, but they deserve your attention. So, it is a good thing to pay attention to, because we cycle through new plants sometimes here at Pride's Corner. I know you do the same thing, but sometimes we just lose it and don't pay enough attention to what's really good out there. It's new one year and you kind of discard it for the next new plant. So let's pay attention to these great new plants. Now, if there was a hydrangea on the farm this year that got that we discounted and no one paid attention to until it was in bloom, it was this plant right here. This is Hydrangea arborescens Invincible Sublime, and let me tell you, it was sublime. This plant just was remarkable in bloom. Now you'd say, oh my God, it's a green flower. How can it be remarkable in bloom? I got to tell you, the flowers were huge. There was plenty of them on a plant that had really stiff stems, held the plants up. And this was like a revelation to everybody that saw it in the sales department this year. It just really was. It bloomed for a long time. It was really dependable. It was a great looking plant. It just is one of those plants that we were prepared to dislike, and everybody loved it. Now, of course, we didn't really know about it that much, so we didn't sell it as well to you guys. But if you're looking for an arborescens type, which is really a great hardy plant on a plant that's dense and full and round and easy to grow, and is going to put on just so much of a better show than the old Annabelles of the world, this is the plant. This was just the showiest plant out there. You got to see it to believe it, but you should definitely try this plant because we loved it. Popstar. Well, you know, this got a little bit of the short shift last year in a lot of ways, and it's easy to understand why. Because it's a lace cap hydrangea, and almost always lace cap hydrangeas are sort of like, you know, it's a lace cap. Everybody wants the big, fluffy mop head flowers, don't they? But I got to tell you what's great about this plant, and in a lot of ways, what's great about all of the lace cap hydrangeas. The first thing about this plant, it just cannot stop blooming. It is such a powerhouse bloomer that, you know, when we're propping this plant, it's blooming in the trays, which is not a great thing sometimes. It just wants to bloom. It's such a dense, full, compact plant. It's always in color, and this is the thing about lace cap hydrangea. Look at a regular hydrangea in the landscape for bee and pollinator traffic, and then look at a lace cap like this. This is alive. It's there's all sorts of things that are attracted to it. Honeybees, native bees, butterflies, they love these small flowers. And you know, let's face it, mophead flowers, they have a little bit of traffic, but not like this. So if you're looking for bloom, if you're looking for activity in the garden and something that you don't have to do anything with and can die to the ground and still bloom remarkably all summer, that's Hydrangea Endless Summer Popstar. It really was a powerhouse. Well, Let's Dance Skyview. Ben, our Massachusetts salesman, is not on this. He's listening, but he's not on screen here. This is like his plant right here. He planted this in his landscape, and I know Ben, he was dying to hate this plant. And guess what? It surprised the crap out of him, and he loves this plant now. It bloomed, it did great, it had great color all summer. It didn't get out of bounds. It stayed nice and compact. It was really dependable. And again, in this past winter, when hydrangeas just got blasted to the ground, this plant was a performer. And so Let's Dance Skyview, if you were on the fence about this last year, it was really proven winners. A big introduction last year. You got to go back to this plant. It is just a flat out performer in the landscape. Grin and Tonic. Well, why is this up here? Because there's just so few white macrophylla hydrangeas out in there, and this fills a niche. And not only that, it fills it well. This is a rebloomer, so you'll get bloom throughout the summer. It has great dark foliage, and it's got this nice mop head white flower that really shows off against that. Now, I know white is not the biggest plant, you know, and there's white endless summer. We know that. Blushing Bride, but this plant is really a true white. It's more compact than Blushing Bride is. It's part of the Bloom and Easy program, and it's an easy grow one. And this is another one that we kind of discounted that actually was a great performer. So this is Hydrangea Grin and Tonic. I put this one up. This is not a new plant, but this is the plant that won an award at Cultivate this year for the best hydrangea out there. This was a real award winner, and I got to tell you that flower color is just so unique. They're huge flowers. They They're dependable bloomers on a plant that's nice and compact. This is in the Bloom and Easy program, but everybody that went to cultivate this past year learned about this plant and was excited about it. So it might be something that you guys want to consider carrying. This is Hydrangea macrophylla cherry go round. Little Hottie, a fantastic plant that not a lot of people know, but let's face it, again, the Hydrangea paniculata field is pretty crowded. What we like about this plant is that it's dense and full, but the size of the flowers on it. Now, what I will say is that it doesn't do as much of the pink thing that a lot of hydrangeas do now as the weather cools. But if you're looking for a dependable plant and a small stature with huge flowers, this is the plant for you. This is Hydrangea Little Hottie. It's been out for a couple of years now, but it's still a great performer in the landscape. Love-A-Lot Pink. This is a plant that we've been selling now for 3 years, so it's certainly not new, but we continue to spread the message of this plant. And why are we doing that? It has the biggest flowers we've seen with the most color change to a really pleasing pink and then dark red color on the strongest stems of any hydrangea we have seen. These are huge flowers, up to 12 inches tall, and yet even after a pelting rainstorm, which we had this year and 3 years ago in the summer, this plant held up its flowers without any problem whatsoever. And as we know, in this rainy New England summer we had this past year, that was a rarity in the landscape. These big sponge-like flowers pick up water, and it's hard for them not to topple over. This plant never did, and we haven't seen that. This is a great dependable plant with the biggest flowers and the strongest stems we've seen. This is Hydrangea Love-A-Lot Pink. So why would I put a Mugo Pine on here? Come on, guys. You know, I know it's at the end of this talk, and I appreciate you guys hanging in here, but you know, this has got to be a joke, right? That we're putting a Pinus Mugo NC up here. What is an NC, by the way? Well, we just wanted to show you something that, you know, that maybe in the past we would have just called this another selection of Mugo, but we kept the name on this NC, even though no one knew it, because this was such an unusual form of this plant. This is like, if there was a florist quality Mugo pine, this NC would be the thing. Everybody that I took on a tour this summer for customers coming in, and they saw this plant, they were like, whoa, stop the vehicle. I got to get out and look at this plant. What is that? And when I told them it was our selection of Mugo pine, which is the only Mugo pine now of a straight Mugo type we were selling, they said, oh my God, this is awesome. And this, you'll say the same thing. This selection of Mugo pine, if you don't see Pinus Mugo Mugus on our availability, that's because we have Pinus Mugo NC, which is so much better than the seedling variety that we used to have in Mugo pine. Predictable, beautiful, outstanding form, and just the tightest plant that you're ever going to see. So that's why we're talking about Pinus Mugo NC, and you are going to love the look of this plant. Just make sure that you don't say, oh, they don't really have Mugo, so I'm not buying my Mugo pine from them. Yes, we do. We've got the best Mugo pine that you can find anywhere, and that's what you want in on. Blushing drift rose. Everybody knows drift roses, and we sell tons of drift roses. This drift rose here was by far and away the best looking rose all summer that we had in the drift collection. And frankly, it was probably the least selling of them also. So as you know, there's a couple pink selections in drift, that blushing just being one of them. But there's one that is called drift pink. And this plant is so far superior to drift pink. It's double flower, it's much more floriferous, it's got a much darker color, the foliage of the plant is much better, and this is a showy plant throughout the summer. And yet we sell 5 times the amount of drift pink as we do drift blushing. And we just shouldn't, because this is head and shoulders a better plant than that. So if you want something that's showy all summer, that is a great plant that's going to get oohs and ahs for your customer, it's drift blushing. And Rose of True Love. So what are true roses anyway? You probably have seen them come in. They've got those really catchy gray and blue containers. And what I would call this is the second generation of Easy Elegance roses. And why would I say that? A lot of people have grown Easy Elegance. We do. We love them. But the true roses are really hybridized by the same person that did the Easy Elegance roses. That's Ping Lim. Many people have seen him, heard him talk, know him. But he is like probably one of the best rose breeders in the world right now. This is one of the true love plants, the true roses out there, the newest one. This is a red colored one, and we love this plant because it just can't stop blooming. And who doesn't like a red rose? I mean, let's face it, it's what most people come in looking for. So blooms throughout the summer, very compact, low maintenance, low disease pressure, just really a great plant for a container or to sell. This is Rosa True Love. And just another note on true roses, there's going to be a number of great new true roses coming out in the next couple of years. This is a category, a brand of roses that you really have to pay attention to, because there's just going to be some mind-blowing new plants that are coming out in the true rose collection. So unbelievable. It's only been 2 hours. Can you imagine? We had a chance to talk about plants for 2 hours here. That's and I enjoyed every minute of it. I apologize if I over talked on a lot of these things, but 75 odd plants to talk about, and hey, this is a great time to talk about plants, isn't it? It gets you dreaming about spring. As someone said earlier on the chat box, it's only 98 days till spring, so let's get to it. Let's put Christmas behind us and let's start thinking about spring here. And the best way to do that is with great new plants. So thanks so much. If you have other questions, definitely throw them in the chat box here. We'll hang in here for another couple minutes and answer a few, but have a great holiday season. We really appreciate you spending all the time with us, and let's sell some great plants in spring of 24.
Tim, I don't know if you saw or not, but we had a quick question in the Q&A section, and I answered it, but I thought you might want to just mention it to the group. Our American Beauty lines, it was talking about neonicotinoids, and our native plants were neonicotinoid free, and I thought that's a good point to make. I don't know if you wanted to talk on that a little bit more.
Sure. It is a question I know that people out there get asked a lot when it comes to native plants, really with almost all plants, but certainly about native plants that are part of that let's face it, the particular pollinators and insects that are being supported by this. It's part of their food life cycle. Neonicotinoids, of course, are a systemic pesticide, and it kills the bad with the good, is what it comes down to. Just so you know that we do not, any American Beauties plant from any American Beauties grower right now, there is no neonicotinoids, nor are they in a place where they can be oversprayed with neonicotinoids. So that is a question that I know has probably vexed a lot of you guys out there, and you haven't been able to give a great answer to, but we can supply you with that answer, and that is American Beauties plants are neonic free. So feel comfortable about doing that. So I see Scott is asking about PW Happy Face versus Bloomin' Easy Potentilla. The PWs are far superior. That's all I would say. We are phasing out the Bloomin' Easy ones. The The PW ones are basically North American bred. The Bloom and Easy ones are European bred, and they are much better. The PW ones are a much better choice. Metamorphosa. We have this in production. There might be a handful available in 2024. I would say that there's going to be more available by 2025, Jonathan. So just wanted to let you know that, but we do have them in production, and just keep an eye on the availability. And let me see, I thought I saw a couple other questions here. Eclipse versus Bloomin' Easy Darkleaf Serrata Pink Dynamo. Well, I would say they're a little bit different, a far different plant. Pink Dynamo is a great plant. It does have dark foliage, definitely not as dark as Eclipse. It has more of a lace cap flower to it, which makes it a lot different. And so I would say that there's probably room for both of them there. Eclipse is always going to have darker foliage and is going to have that mop head flower. But I love Pink Dynamo. I think it brings a lot to the landscape. I think it's more floriferous than Eclipse will be also. So it's kind of I'm not sure you're measuring apples to apples there, but I think they both have their place. But Pink Dynamo is a little bit different kind of plant, I think. Let's see, anything else here? So, like I said, any other questions you might have, happy to answer them. And if not, quite honestly, we're happy to, if you email us or email your sales team, we're also happy to answer them off this. Definitely let your team look at the recording of this in this winter when they have maybe a little bit less to do to get ready for spring, but I think there's some good exciting stuff here. So